Welcome, everyone. We'll begin in just a minute. Welcome those of you who are joining. We'll start in just a minute, give people a chance to join the room. Great. Well, we will get started. Welcome, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the North Central Plan 2020 Virtual Community-Wide Town Hall Meeting. My name is Lorna Godwin of Vector Communications, and I am your moderator for this evening. Tonight's webinar is the fourth and final community-wide town hall for the North Central Plan. This is a hybrid event, which means there is a similar in-person meeting happening now at the Deaconess Center for Child Wellbeing. But we're glad that you're here with us on the virtual meeting. At both events, the community is being provided an opportunity to review the draft plan and give comments to the planning team. Well, the agenda for this virtual meeting is to present the draft North Central Plan 2020 for the Covenant Blue Grand Center and Van Deventer neighborhoods. First, we will review the plan's goals and strategies, then present the draft plan, followed by the implementation plan, and lastly, present the process for getting the North Central 2020 plan adopted by the City of St. Louis. Tonight's goal is to get your feedback on the draft plan itself, its goals and strategies, and the implementation plan. Both plans were recently presented to the steering committee for their review and input. This is what we are presenting to you tonight. After you give your input, the planning team will review your feedback and incorporate it into the plan. During this meeting, you will have opportunities to ask questions and if you want to give your comments tonight. All of you are on mute so everyone can hear clearly. If you have a question and/or comment, please click on the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and send your question to Q&A. When it comes time to answer questions, I will read them out loud. We ask that you remain muted and submit your questions through the chat box only. Now, please know we are presenting a lot of information to you tonight, so you will probably want time to digest it before commenting. That's why by tomorrow afternoon, tonight's presentation will be on our website along with a comment form for you to complete. Our website address is northcentralstlplan.com. That's northcentralstlplan.com. Well, during the last few weeks, 15 area organizations have endorsed the planning process for the North Central Plan 2020. The list was on the meeting invitation you received. A representative from one of these organizations is with us tonight to say a few words. Please welcome Father Steve Benden of St. Alphonsus Liguori Rock Catholic Church, better known as The Rock. Father Benden, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And I am Father Steve Benden. I'm the pastor at St. Alphonsus Rock Church on the corner of Cook and Grand. And we've been here as a church since 1867. And over the last 154 years now, we've tried to bring God to the people of the neighborhood. And just as the official pastor here now at the church, I do want to give my feelings for the plan. I was just at another virtual meeting here this afternoon, and we were talking about some of the urban blight, on the north side. And not only is the plan here, the North Central Plan, going to improve the neighborhood, but maybe as importantly, maybe even more importantly, it does improve our attitude just about what we see in the neighborhood. And I think that psychological factor gets overlooked sometimes. Just a feeling of something new, something fresh coming into the neighborhood, that people are taking an active stance on improving the neighborhood, has such a wonderful impact, not just, again, physically, but emotionally with people. And so my endorsement is then twofold. It's because I live in the north side here. I recognize that we do need, all of us need, I think, to see some new things happening, some growth happening, but also, physically, to see new buildings going up and new people coming in, all that type of thing, businesses, that's always a good thing. But also just because of the psychological approach will help so many people's spirits, I think, to see that things are being done. So I applaud the efforts that have been taking place so far. It's a grand undertaking, to do something like this. But anyway, I just, as a person that lives here and a part of a church in the local area, I just wanted to thank those that are moving forward with this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Father Bendon, for your comments and being present tonight. And you're right, it's about spirit, the attitude, the changes that it could bring by just seeing improvements in the neighborhood. So thank you again for endorsing the planning process. Well, before we get to tonight's presentation, I want to tell you that we are also having a random giveaway for tonight's attendees. We will give a gift to 5 attendees. The gift is an e-certificate to Cupcake Fetish, which is a Black-owned company located in Maryland Heights. These are the same cupcakes being enjoyed at the in-person event, so you're not being left out being part of the virtual meeting. We will announce the winners at the end of our evening, but here's the caveat: you need to be present to win. You need to be present to win. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce John Hole, owner of H3 Studio, Inc., who will present the draft plan. H3 Studio is the lead consultant on this planning project. John, take it away.
Thank you, Lorna, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending. And as I say, the other half of the team is actually eating cupcakes while I'm having to present. I think I got the short straw here, but this is really wonderful to be with you and talk you through the final draft of the North Central. And the way this has evolved over the last number of months has been really very integrated with the steering committee and all of your feedback. So what you see tonight basically incorporates everything we've heard and uses the baseline of the analysis that we presented to you in the very first meeting. And I'll touch a couple of those items as we go through so you can see the connection between what we shared with you in the very first meeting and what we're sharing with you tonight. But this is really about your plan, and it's very important that we continue to get your feedback. And so I'm going to encourage you to go to the website and participate in the feedback. Nothing is set at this point. We're still flexible, so please provide your input. And as you know, sort of way back in the very first meeting, we started to talk about what were the core values and the community vision that would orchestrate the North Central plan. And this is how those two components have evolved over time. So on the left-hand side here, you can see the core values. And it's very important. These are values that you collectively as a community will not only using for the planning process, but will really use throughout the implementation and what makes your community special. So I will touch on all of them as we move through. But the first one, everyone has the opportunity to thrive in place and in a multi-generational community. So that idea that you can stay and grow and be in this multi-generation community is really a driving value of the overall plan. Everyone is respected and provided equal consideration. And then your statements: we, the community, make decisions with transparency, and provide forums and venues for all residents and stakeholders to participate. And we're seeing this not only as part of this planning process, but the plan is only the first stage. As you move through into implementation, that transparency and the continuation of those forums will be vitally important. And you'll see how I tie that back into an implementation strategy. And importantly, participating, you've all agreed to share responsibility for improving the North Central neighborhood and implementing the plan. This plan is not going to be implemented without everyone's effort on the ground, pushing the plan forward. There's no magic to implementation of plans. It's hard work, and it's continuous and thoughtful development as one moves forward. And ultimately, you are the stewards of your environment for future generations. So those values underlie everything that you will be doing and have done up to now. The community vision statement. This was crafted through the 3 public meetings up to now and many steering committee meetings. Overall, you're seeking a whole, healthy, and vibrant community comprised of distinctive neighborhoods, housing, cultural, religious, and educational amenities, and it will be a well-maintained, safe, and inclusive home for all residents, businesses, and institutions. The residents of North Central will have physical and organizational access to jobs, education, healthcare facilities, businesses, and other key amenities to ensure an excellent quality of life. And right from the beginning, you have all the residents have said how well this neighborhood is centrally located and connected to all the areas of the city. So it offers tremendous opportunity for you to partner with the key institutions around you. And then, led by the people who call North Central home, the community will provide equal support and assist residents and stakeholders to thrive and chart their own future, this generation and the next. So it's a great long-term vision. So the vision is sort of operationalized and developed through a series of principles, goals, and strategies. And you'll see this, again, you'll see on the left-hand side, the 3 principles, community revitalization principles. First, the place, build a whole, healthy, and vibrant community. And then the people, so people and place, empower the residents to achieve an excellent quality of life. And then organize for success, for equitable and long-term implementation. So those 3 principles organize the 12 goals that you see on the right-hand side. And they become very important, and they will be a driving feature of the plan. So goal 1, respect and celebrate and build upon the diverse history of North Central. 2, create a whole, healthy, and vibrant neighborhood. 3, rehab existing homes and provide a diversity of new homes. 4, promote and support creation and retention of viable community businesses, creative arts industries, and promote entrepreneurship. And goal 5, provide neighborhood safety for all residents. And those 5 are orchestrating the place building that whole, healthy, and vibrant community. And then moving on to how one supports and empowers the residents. So goal 6, support and assist North Central residents to remain in place and build wealth and social capital. 7, connect and engage residents of all ages to sustainable employment and community services. 8, attract and provide access to high quality recreation, educational, health, and cultural amenities and programs. And 9, improve and enhance public infrastructure and public services. So those are the 4 core goals for achieving an excellent quality of life. And then organizing for success has 3. Goal 10, establish clear communication and accountability with the City of St. Louis. Create a participatory decision-making process for residents to guide the future of the community. And 12, ensure a just, equitable, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future for the North Central community. So those 3 revitalization principles and 12 goals have a series of strategies associated with them. So for every goal, there's a series of strategies, and that orchestrates the next level of detail of the plan. I'm not going to go through each of the strategies for the goals, because that would be take a long time, but I encourage you to go to the web and look at it. So as one example, since we'll be starting and looking at the urban design plan, I've selected goal 2, create whole and healthy and vibrant neighborhoods. And here you can see the goal stated at the top. And then there's a series of strategies that help you get there. And this you'll see as played out through the neighborhood plan. But for instance, strategy 1, 2.1 says balance housing types with the opportunity to support transit, employment, and community commercial facilities. So it's really about housing types, and you'll see that coming up. And you can go through each one of these. Like number 3 is about parks. Number 4 is about safe and comfortable walkable streets. 5 is about distinctive walkable districts. A creative beautification community. And the idea of sustainability, resiliency, and just policies for future development. So each of those strategies are aligned with one of the goals. And as I say, this is just one example, but I do encourage you to look on the web and see the full range of strategies. Let me move now on to looking at the neighborhood urban design plan, which comes out of that goal 2 and the first community revitalization principle. And an important component for the neighborhood urban design plan is that it needs to build upon the existing and potential assets that increase the opportunity and capacity of the residents to improve their quality of life and revitalize the neighborhood. And certainly one of the great assets that you've had in this neighborhood over time is the history, right? It's got a really quite remarkable history. And there's an extensive historical analysis of your neighborhood on the web. But I do want to point out a couple of things that become, very interesting as you look at this. Let's see. If you look here, there's Grand Avenue, and you can actually see the Rock Church. You can see the Rock Church here on the right. But what's interesting, if you look to the area that's enclosed in the white rectangle, you can see the rectilinear blocks of the Van der Venter neighborhood. And then to the east, more towards the bottom of the screen, you see a different block structure in the Covenant Blue area. And you'll see the quality of the 2 different layouts of the neighborhood become very important in the history and the potential of your neighborhood. So built into the historical layout of your neighborhood is much of the potential. I do want to mention as well that your neighborhood over time was subject to formal and informal racial and discriminatory planning and redlining development practices. And so you have suffered a fair amount over the history of your neighborhood in terms of redlining and racial planning practices. And this is just an example of some of the assets that still, the historical assets that remain within your neighborhood. Again, you can see number 4 over here is the Rock Church. But there are some very interesting remnants of that history that we will try and build upon through the neighborhood plan. And here you can see that the North Central plan is made up of the Van der Venter neighborhood and the Covenant Blue neighborhood. And again, you can see if you look at the Covenant Blue, the angle coming up from downtown, that smaller block structure is really influential in the Covenant Blue Grand Center, and then the very rectangular, long blocks in the Van Deventer neighborhood are different. Very walkable neighborhoods, very important in terms of the smaller rings that you see in here are 5-minute walking distances, and the larger rings that you see are 10 minutes. So it's actually a comfortable 10 to 15-minute walk to go from the center of one neighborhood to the other. And so one of the things that you have mentioned to us over the time is how they can be more integrated and more connected. And you'll see some of the proposals for that as we move forward. But that does lead to tying into looking at that street network and the parks network to begin to orchestrate that connection. And one of the key things you mentioned right in the beginnings was the poor quality of the infrastructure in the neighborhood. So really addressing how we think through rebuilding the streets, improving the streets, making them tree lined will be very important. So at a smaller scale detail that will be in the final plan, we'll really be looking at how we can increase the bump outs and the walkability of the neighborhood, and increase the opportunity to put medians down the center of the street. That creates a great sense of pedestrian comfort and adds great value to your neighborhood. So we'll be looking at these range of options to improve the individual streets as we move through. One of the important components of your neighborhood is that you are surrounded and integrate a great many institutional and community anchors. And well, perhaps up to now, they haven't been as beneficial to you all and haven't participated as much as they wish, or you wish they had participated in the revitalization of the neighborhood. I think there's great opportunity as you move forward to leverage those. And of course, on the one side along Lindell, you have SLU, but you have schools, you have the Veterans Hospital, you have a great range of churches, and on the other side you have Rankin. And I think it will be important over the long term to really begin to work together as a collaborative to foster greater revitalization of your neighborhood. So when one looks at the Arts District, which is outlined here in red, you know, that's a very distinctive component. And the idea that people living in the neighborhood can participate in the Arts District, and the Arts District participate in the revitalization of the neighborhood can be a very, very powerful force in terms of arts and culture being a great identity and community building mechanism. Interestingly, in this area, there's increased potential for a warehouse type residential infill in the Arts District. We're beginning to see the very first projects emerging along these lines. The Verve, for instance, on Lindell is one such development, but there's great opportunity in large sites that could be opportune for doing this, and particularly in terms of Delmar Boulevard, that could really be turned into a major vibrant street at this point between the current housing and great potential infill housing as you move forward. So from the Arts District, looking as one moves north, you have Veterans Hospital, and there's a great opportunity with such a hospital, which is also partnered with SLU Hospital, to create a wellness district. And there's a great opportunity that basically the wellness district can really incorporate much of the housing and create a very strong, healthy community. And so one of the visionary components of your development is having a healthy neighborhood. Well, hospitals, tied also to public housing, has created a numerous of these wellness districts. And this is really a great future potential for you all to be working on. And you've already got a range of community gardens operating within your neighborhood. So all of this can come together and really be facilitated as a strong component of that healthy neighborhood you're striving for. And this gives you just a small example. Here is the Veterans Hospital on the left-hand side. There's an opportunity to create a great linear park connection from the Van der Venter neighborhood into the Covenant Blue here, and create additional housing in and around a new park facility. And then finally, in terms of your community anchors, you have a shopping center at Sarah and Lyndall, and you have a stronger emerging shopping center up at Dr. Martin Luther King and Grand and Spring there. So if you continue to have these revitalized, the provision of the community services would be strongly available to you all. So there's the really important community and institutional anchors, and as you can see, that sort of mainly is created around the Covenant Blue and centered on sort of Grand Avenue and Lyndall. So that leaves the residential core that you can see from Spring through Van der Venter, from MLK to Delmar. And just to remind you back to the very first meeting, and this is very important, you have substantial, as I'm sure you're well aware of, residential vacancy, both in terms of buildings and in terms of lots. And this gives you the solid portions here, show where your vacancy primarily exists. But you can see you've got 94 vacant buildings and 94 acres of vacancy. So it's a challenge. So how you rebuild in terms of housing is going to be very important and essential to you. And so part and parcel of looking at that and tying into one of your goals of housing affordability and wealth building, we began to look at the different housing types that you have in the neighborhood. This might be a little bit small for you, but you have predominantly single family and duplexes in your neighborhood. And it's important when you think of housing affordability to have a full range of housing types within your neighborhood. So this gives you an example. This is classically called the missing middle housing, because most neighborhoods, really have single family houses, or they have mid-rises. They don't have the range of house types in the middle. And this is where you create housing affordability, and how you mix those houses and how they support each other become very important, and become really important design considerations. So you really want your single family home and your duplexes and your fourplexes to all look the same, so they contribute to the overall identity of the neighborhood, but increase the opportunity for affordability within the neighborhood. So housing is going to be a very important component over the long term. So looking at some of the principles in terms of the core development, you've already got along Van der Venter and Sarah a neighborhood center emerging in the part of, particularly along Sarah, and here's a more detailed area. And here's on the right-hand side is Sarah, and these are the buildings that are already in place. You've got Turner Park here, and we're suggesting some minor improvements to that to make that really more viable and increase the eyes on the park. And then to the west is the Stevens Elementary School that's currently vacant. So if one cannot revitalize that, there's an opportunity to create a small park faced by some further residential development, a more compact residential development here. So that can really become a core component. And the idea of the new residential is to create what we call a sort of a residential park development. And this is a sort of very important. In other words, you've got very long blocks, how to break up the blocks and how to insert small sort of residentially focused parks that actually create the value and the amenity to the houses adjacent. And this is an important economic development strategy. And to be clear, these new parks should be provided as a neighborhood amenity to the residential development by the developer, and really be controlled and maintained as part of a neighborhood strategy and a residential strategy. These small parks that create the value for the residential would not be public parks and owned by the city of St. Louis, but really would be a residential strategy. This particular one along Cook Avenue, just as an example, we've tried to tie it to a really important historical event that happened on these properties. And as you can see on the right-hand side, it's a space of racial transgression. And again, just honoring the history of your neighborhood can be part of the armature of creating these memorable places and
John, we can't hear you. We still can't. Not hearing anything. And now you're on mute.
Okay, is this better?
Okay, yes, you're back.
Sorry, everyone. I'll just go back. So we had finished on the idea of the residential parks, and now moving on to looking at your main streets within this, such as Delmar and Enright. One of the very interesting components of the streets as you look at them is that they are very wide. And as residential streets, there's great opportunity to insert a median in there. So if you look, for instance, this is Enright as an example, it's 80 feet wide, right? Which allows you to really put in a great sidewalk, great street trees, as well as a median. And we are recommending that this would be a tremendous way to add value to the neighborhood. One doesn't need as wide as streets as that. And then, so in terms of this, Enright could get a median down there, as can Delmar. And then what we've been looking at is how we can connect Delmar and Enright across into Covenant Blue neighborhood. And here you can begin to see the opportunity for making a linear park up through into Covenant Blue, and that shows up in this example here. Here's Delmar Boulevard as it comes through and eventually connects down into Covenant Blue, and this is the Veterans Hospital, as you can see here. So there's great opportunity to come in put medians down the widest of your streets, and bring some linear parks and connect across the two neighborhoods. Remember how I mentioned how walkable this neighborhood is? This could be a great opportunity to increase that. The other component is, and I'm sure you all know about it, is the opportunity for the Hodemont Greenway that comes through your neighborhood. And that is a very, very interesting opportunity. And here you can see the smaller detail. You can see Hodemont Greenway coming through in this location here. And you have some very deep lots here that offer an opportunity to have a sort of a granny flat or a small residential building on these lots. And on the top right hand side you can see an image of what that can in fact be, and then there's a more traditional one that already exists in St. Louis. So this is a way that in fact you can add some additional housing units that are affordable, that, remember, come back to that idea of multi-generational. So even on the lots, you can have your, the classic granny flat, and you can have an extended family situation. But the fantastic part of the Hodemont Greenway is that will create, this great amenity. And here again, you can see the Hodemont Greenway is 64 feet wide, so it allows both like a shared street in which you have the greenway, the bike path coming through. It would be landscaped. You could still have access on either side, and then on either side of these you can be building those granny flats and those additional work-live units as part and parcel of it. And this is a fairly well-worn idea, and so we were sort of promoting it. The top right-hand image shows an example of retrofitting one, but the top left-hand image too could be something that's really very engaging. So it would turn the Hodemont Greenway into a front, not a back, and so that would really allow one to have these additional units on it. And then as it comes through into Cole Elementary School here, and the Urban League is on Van Deventer at this stage, there's a possibility to put a trailhead and greenway here by working with the Urban League and the Cole Elementary. And so how fabulous would this be to have a elementary school sort of on the greenway, and imagine what they could be doing in terms of the kids up and down there, cycling, cleaning, doing all the sorts of things that can really take ownership of the greenway and use it as a great opportunity for the school and a great trailhead for the community. Moving further north in your neighborhood, up to MLK, this is a designated business corridor in the city's plan. So we're certainly honoring that. And it is a really important seam and connection with the Ville. And we all know how important and historical the Ville is. So this would be something that, post the plan and continuing to work with the Ville community and the developers there to really come together on a vision for this. But it is what we really calling for is a mixed use development along MLK here. This would be the business corridor as an opportunity. And all of you know the Clark building, and that site is up for redevelopment as a potential. So we have 3 different versions of what you could be doing here, certainly to be worked out sort of post the plan. But this is an example in which the Clark building could become a community arts type center and a make it space, and really be a great community facility. And that could be surrounded by housing and could face on the other side the redevelopment of commercial along MLK. So that could be one opportunity. The second opportunity is to put an active recreation park into this as a junction and to be used with your adjacent neighborhoods. There is no significant active recreation in and around your neighborhood. There's an odd field in one or two of the parks, but you really have to go up to Fairgrounds Park and before you can get something that's collective. So the one option is this idea of really having an active recreational center, an active living center here. And then finally, it could evolve into something that's completely brand new, more of a high-tech innovation campus. And you know, the opportune here is again the large size lot, if one could find the right developer and the right user of something like that. So 3 different options for here that could contribute as anchors to Dr. Martin Luther King Drive business area. And then finally into Page. Page is an interesting street and a challenging street for your neighborhood. It's extremely wide and it doesn't take an enormous amount of traffic, but it takes high-speed traffic. And so it's a division within your neighborhood. And so what we are suggesting is that it does become a more residential boulevard. It still can take the amount of traffic, but certainly not at that speed, because the primary uses along Page are residential. So you really do want to slow that traffic down. But it is a major street, city street, so one would have to work with that. As you move further out on Page, it in fact does become a one lane in each direction, but certainly within the core of the city, it is a major bus route and 2 lanes in each direction. But the speed is the issue. So the idea of the median is to slow that the traffic down through the neighborhood. And then the other great component of this is you have the brick line coming in along Spring Avenue. And this is a long-term greenway that will move through the campus, the SLU campus, and connect all the way ultimately to Forest Park, but it can come up and eventually will connect to Fairgrounds Park as well. So it will be an important component as you move through. And in detail, what we're showing along Spring Avenue is to narrow Spring Avenue, which is extremely wide. You don't need that width with the minimal amount of traffic, and really put a great bike path along the side. We're showing it on the west side here. And then again, there's the opportunity with some vacant land to open up. This is Scruggs Memorial Church as an example, but again, to build the idea of new housing facing green areas, and that being the amenity for the construction of housing. So that brings those 3 components: a great streets and park network, collaborating with the institutional community anchors, and the residential core. So I'll pass that back now to Lorna.
Thank you, John, for outlining the plans for Health and Wellness District, housing, infill housing, also residential parks, linear parks, and other ideas as well. We had a question that just came in. Before that, we didn't have any questions, but this person wants to know the plans for a particular area. She has not heard any improvements because she is concerned about the 3900 and the 4000 block of West Bell Place, that there are vacant lots and vacant apartment buildings along there that invites crime and is an eyesore for homeowners and upkeeping their property. Are there any planned improvements for the 3900 and 4000 block of West Bell Place?
At this stage, we have obviously the rehab of the existing and the infill condition of those. So that would be the two strategies to deal with housing on those two blocks. And again, I should say further, the public improvement strategy that I mentioned in terms of the street is going to be key to that.
Hopefully that answers your question. If not, please let us know. And I have been told, and I can see that Alderman Jesse Todd is on the line. And Alderman Todd, did you want to say a few words? I can either get you now or later.
I support the plan 100%. And if it's anything I can do as far as making laws, I certainly would be glad to do that. So just let me know what I can do. I think it's a great plan.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your participation all along and your interest and concern with this project, because you have been to all of the steering committee meetings, and we appreciate that as part of the planning team. John, I don't see any other questions at this time, so please continue.
Thanks, Lorna. So let's talk about implementation. One of the biggest challenges of planning is that you do a great plan and that nothing happens. And it's perhaps been a history, and it's a little bit of a reflection. You did a plan many years ago and it hasn't progressed as much as it should. So in terms of implementation, we really want to emphasize three things: organizing for success, getting that design code and guidelines for those new homes and rehabs, and then looking at a phased plan for implementation. So let me take you through perhaps what we believe is one of the most important things, which is this implementation organization. And the city gives us an opportunity here in terms of organizing for success. So we are strongly suggesting that you establish a unified community-based governance entity. This would typically be a community-based development organization or community development corporation. There's subtle differences, but not important. But the most important thing is that you as a community need to come together with a governance entity. This is, in other words, you have to have an entity that is answerable to all of you, that is led by a executive director or a director who wakes up every single day, and it's their job to move this plan forward and to deal with the key issues. You know, all of us who are residents in neighborhoods, we participate, we put our backs into it, but we also work, we have family, we have everything else. For this plan to move forward, we feel strongly that there needs to be someone who wakes up every single day and moves the plan forward. That has to be coterminous with a funding entity. In other words, that organization has to be able to raise funds, apply for grants, etc. So these types of organizations, and you can see on the right-hand side what they generally do as a range of options. But most important, this is an organization that is answerable to the community. It's formed by the community and it's governed by the community, but you're employing a staff to wake up every single day and move the plan forward. To this end, I wanted to give you an example. The city does have a number of these types of organizations, and they've been proved rather successful. The best of them have been very successful. And I'm just sharing you one of them, which is the Skinker de Bolivia. Community Council, the SDCC. And I'm sharing this not because it's anything unique, but because of the range of programs that it offers. And you can see how this will tie to your goals that you mentioned right in the beginning and form. So here you can see on the left-hand side the vision and the mission. The Skinker de Bolivar Community Council aims to be the connector, coordinator, and facilitator of all aspects necessary to maintain and enhance the diverse and desirable, thriving community of Skinker de Bolivar. So it's really important that that mission statement for the organization is clear, and you can see, the justification of what it actually does. But it has a dedicated staff, as I say, that wakes up every day and moves the neighborhood forward. These are the types of programs. It has a block program. It welcomes new neighbors in here and makes them feel part of it. There's a home share program here. And this is actually really quite successful because it's home share with older adults, 65 years and older. Some of the WashU students pay to live with the older residents, or they do a work-live type situation where they upkeep the home and things. So that's one type of program. The monitoring of landlords and residential investors is really important. Maintaining that quality of rental property and upgrading that over time. This is something that this type of organization would monitor, and with the community's assistance, deal with any challenges they have. They run community gardens. They have homeowner assistance, right? Doing the basic maintenance to some of the struggling homeowners. And then the idea of aging in place. Again, very interesting range of programs, thinking of your vision of the multi-generational neighborhood. So the programs are very socially orientated and supportive and about creating that thriving community while dealing with development at the same time. As a subsidiary and integrated into this is a housing corporation. And you can see again, it's a nonprofit organization to be the buyer of necessity. So when you think of the amount of vacant homes you have, this could be a great opportunity for a housing corporation to be able to come in and buy, and the neighborhood be in control of how the buildings get redeveloped, etc. And of course, partnerships are absolutely essential in all of these components. But so there is both the community development, the people side of these, as well as the real estate and the development side. And then I'll mention as one of the partners, they have the East Loop Community Improvement District. This is along Dalmar area, and you know how that little section along Skinker de Bolivar, east of the Metrolink station is revitalizing and becoming stronger and stronger. But this would be something one would look at, for instance, along Dr. Martin Luther King, and how one can establish that improvement district and really help create the business opportunity that you have. So that gives you an example of what a CDC can do. And we truly believe this is a vitally important implementation strategy. And then the second one, as I mentioned this before, you've got tremendous amount, 96 acres of property that are going to be redeveloped over time. You need a strong design code and guidelines for that. You want to make sure the homes that are going in are contributing to the character of each of the streets. And you've got a great variety of different architectural styles and house styles. And this could be something that becomes important so that you don't get incompatible designs in the middle of some of your great blocks. And again, that range of housing becomes very, very important for you all. And then implementation phasing. We've just started this. So again, if you have the opportunity to go to the web and look at this, this is a sort of the phasing that came out of the first discussion with the steering committee, and looking at the plan and some of the goals and the opportunities and strategies. They've organized this as into short term, which is less than 5 years, medium term, up to 10 years, and then long term, post 10 years. And they started to begin to think of some of the priorities that they'd like to do in the short term. And here you can see a list. Interestingly, a large part of them is establishing that community-based development organization and a residence council, that volunteer-based safety committees, as well as that housing organization. So essentially, the first 5 of these are really building that infrastructure for implementation, that organization. And the last 2 is really seeing how one can actually help the current North Central residents with emergency home repairs and small improvement projects, and importantly, overcoming the digital divide that exists within the community with some sort of hotspots, neighborhood hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots. So, phase 1, organize, get the community going in terms of talking, the partnerships being built, support the existing neighbors and hotspots. Into the medium term, really starting to focus in on the rehab of the existing buildings and the new infill housing. So very much about housing, and then trying to build an entrepreneurial and job skills. And this is where, again, your local anchoring institutions like Rankin could be very vital to helping build the job space of your neighborhood. And again, interesting, the importance of the history project. It's got tremendous history in your neighborhood. And then long-term, post 10 years, is really from the housing, moving on to the greening and the walkability, the brick line, the Hodemont Greenway being important, and then beginning to focus on the MLK Plaza and Little Marketplace, as well as MLK business area there, and tie back into the health and wellness district. So this was the steering committee's first pass, and sort of prioritizing into a type of phasing plan of the neighborhood. So it'd be interesting to hear what you think about that strategy. But before Lorna takes questions, just to know where we go from here, after we've heard and got all the input from today, we'll be amending the plan and refining it. But there's been a long-term intent to have this plan adopted by the city. And this is the adoption process. It's a kind of a 5-step process. As I say, we complete the plan and we submit it to the City of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency, and they take time and they review that. Just so you know, we are and have been meeting with the planning and urban design agencies throughout the plan pretty regularly, so they're well up to date on the plan. They then give us questions, and we do whatever amendments we need to be done, and then submit it back to planning and urban design agency, and then they set up a public meeting, a public hearing, which is step 4. So this is not the last time you can have input into the plan. Beyond our celebration meeting at the end of this planning process, the city conducts a formal public hearing, so you'll always be able to come down and express any concerns, but hopefully support as well. And then based upon the public hearing, the Planning Commission votes whether to adopt this as a topical plan. And pass it back to Lorna.
Thank you, John. And we do have some questions. There was one person who asked the question before you presented the implementation plan, but I'm still going to ask it of you. What is the actual start date of these developments, and is there a timeline for each particular area?
No, not as yet. That would be one of the important things to develop by this implementation organization, for them to develop based upon the plan, an action plan, and based upon the priorities that are expressed within the plan as well. So, interestingly, the priority is to rehab the existing homes first and then move on to the infill. But this level of implementation planning should be conducted by the organization that is set up.
Thank you. The next question is about the parks that you talked about earlier. The parks that will be developed appear to be in areas where people are currently residing. What is the plan to get those people reestablished elsewhere without extra expense to these residents?
We've done our utmost to suggest positions of the parks where that doesn't occur. If it should occur, it would be the person would be relocated to within the neighborhood, and that would be a negotiation. It would nowhere be a requirement. So there's no forced relocation or anything. This would be by pure agreement, should they need to be. But we try to show those as an example. The school, right? That there's no relocation on that one. So for most part, I don't believe there are formal relocations.
Thank you. The next question is about the current plan related to the plan of 20 years ago. Can you summarize the major differences or modifications between the prior North Central plan and the new draft North Central 2020 plan?
Thank you for that question. Very insightful question.
Yes.
It was very interesting. I had an image of the plan I was going to share with you and took it out at the last moment because I thought it would make the presentation rather long. So that was obviously a mistake on my part. But one of the key things is they led with parks. Their parks that they proposed required enormous purchasing of private property and remapping sort of large blocks of the neighborhood. We've taken that inspiration of parks as being important, but we've tried to make them tied to the residential redevelopment strategy, and then proposed where there's an opportunity, like the Killark site is, do you want to take on a park at that location? So we have tried to bring forward the parks in a very direct way, but in a different way. They had a very strong idea of the importance of the design of streets. We've kept that as well, and in fact strengthened that with medians. We have taken the other aspiration of making sure there is a major link between the two neighborhoods as being critical. And then finally on housing, the range of housing types and the strategy is very similar between the two plans. So I think there's a lot of correlation. Formally, there's just a different park strategy. It's a smaller scale, more intimate, more localized neighborhood by neighborhood park, as opposed to the very broad swaths of the neighborhood taken over by parks in the previous plan.
I knew you would like that question because we have obviously discussed it over the months of working on this plan. There's one last question that I will answer myself, but are there any other questions from attendees? Oh, not a question, but a comment that's coming in. This is an exciting plan. Love that it has been a citizen-led effort. How can the broader community show support for this plan? And John, do you want to say anything? If not, I will.
Well, no, go ahead, because that's...
Yeah. Can you contact, I would contact David Nert Flores at Deaconess Foundation, who is guiding us with this project and leading it along with UCC, and say that you would like to show your support. And we can add your name or your organization's name to the website, our website, to say that you are supporting this plan. I think that is the best way to do it. And you can also send us an email through the website, which I will give that address again, because the other question that we have here is, where can we find a copy of the plan and this presentation? You saw that we are recording it, so it will be online no later than tomorrow afternoon at our project website. And that address is northcentralstlplan.com, northcentralstlplan.com. And there'll be a comment form there where you can leave your comments and your feedback about the whole plan, certain areas of the plan, the implementation plan, etc. Are there any other questions before I should have a drum roll that I announce who the cupcake winners are? I'll give you a minute if anyone has any other questions or comments before we close. And while you're thinking of any other comments or questions, you see up on the screen that we are having a planned celebration event, implementing while planning, just to celebrate the work that has been done, bringing the community together to celebrate that we've taken this big step. And that is going to be on Saturday, May 15th. We do not know the time yet, but you will be receiving notice of it via snail mail and email. But just mark on your calendars now, if you can, May 15th will be a celebration event. I don't see any other questions or comments, John, so I think it's time to see who our cupcake winners are. And we will email you your certificate because we have your email address since you registered for this meeting. And I'm looking at the names so far. They are still with us. So I said you have to be present to win. And our first winner is Alicia Deal. Congratulations. We will email you your cupcake certificate to Cupcake Fetish. Our next winner is Angela Orris, who I see is also still on the line. Congratulations, Angela. The next one is Caroline Moore. Congratulations, Caroline. I still see that you're on as well. Next is, let me check to see if this person is still on, Michelle December. Congratulations. And last but not least, our fifth winner is Reginald Scott. So congratulations to Alicia, Angela, Michelle, Caroline, and Reginald. We will be emailing you your e-certificate to Cupcake Fetish this evening. And thanks to all of you for attending our meeting tonight. Again, this presentation and a comment form will be online by tomorrow afternoon at northcentralplanstl.com. North Central, and is also in your chat box as well. So thank you so much for participating this evening. Stay safe and have a good rest of your evening. Good night.